Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you love captivating stories about men transforming into women in unique and fascinating ways, then be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Now, let's jump right into today's tale.
Ethan Grant had the kind of face that made people distrust him on principle. Not because he looked sleazy, he didn't. In fact, he had the kind of jawline that made baristas spell his name right, even when he mumbled it, and the kind of smile that got him out of parking tickets. But there was something in his eyes. A glint. A sparkle. Like he was always planning something, just a little bit too clever for his own good. He was 6'2", lean-muscled, always smelled like expensive cologne and poor decisions. His hair was the tousled, just rolled out of bed, mess that took 45 minutes to perfect. Each morning he'd stand before his bathroom mirror, artfully arranging each strand while telling himself it was effortless. 3 different hair products, and nearly an hour later, he'd achieved what Instagram called natural. Nothing about Ethan Grant was natural except his talent for deception. He sold real estate, luxury condos mostly, but he talked like he was auditioning for a rom-com lead. It's not just square footage, he'd tell clients with a wink that had closed more deals than his actual sales pitch. It's the canvas for your future. Women would sign contracts while staring at his mouth. Men would shake his hand a bit too firmly, as if physical dominance might compensate for how easily their wives laughed at his jokes. And he cheated like it was a competitive sport. Personal best, he once bragged to his buddy Marcus over whiskeys. 3 different women in 36 hours, and none of them knew about each other, including Maddie. Marcus had whistled low. "You're playing with fire, man." Ethan had just smirked. "I like it hot." His girlfriend, however, was no fool. Madeline Rivers had the calm, terrifying presence of a woman who'd been underestimated one too many times, and had learned to weaponize it. She wasn't flashy like the influencer types Ethan gravitated toward when he was bored. No, Maddie was polished. Sharp. The kind of woman who wore heels like they were armor and eyeliner like war paint. When she walked into boardrooms, men stopped mid-sentence. Not because she was beautiful, though she was in a severe, striking way that made people stare a beat too long, but because she radiated the kind of quiet confidence that made others question their own. She had an MBA, a black cat named Hex, and a family history that included a suspicious number of women who were good with herbs, candles, and cursing the hell out of unfaithful men. My great-grandmother turned her cheating husband into a toad, she'd once told Ethan over dinner, casually twirling pasta around her fork. "Is that what happened?" He'd laughed, reaching for his wine. And here, I thought, those were just charming family stories to scare the kids straight. She'd looked up then, her eyes glinting in the restaurant's candlelight. "We don't have charming family stories, Ethan. We have warnings." Maddie had warned him. Once. Clearly. "If you cheat on me, Ethan, I will ruin your life." He'd laughed. Of course he had. He always thought she was joking, even when she wasn't. Especially when she wasn't. "Come on, Mads," he'd said, pulling her close and nuzzling her neck. "Why would I ever stray when I've got all this at home?" His hands had wandered then, and she'd allowed it. But her eyes remained cool, calculating. "I mean it," she'd said. "I don't share. Not ever." "Neither do I." He'd lied, his voice a purr against her skin. In his mind the rules were simple. What Madeline didn't know wouldn't hurt her. Or him. Win. Win. So when she found the texts, oh the glorious texts, between Ethan and some 22-year-old who thought boundaries were a suggestion, she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't throw his stuff out the window or key his car. She smiled. And Ethan, in his infinite idiocy, mistook that smile for forgiveness. "So we're good?" he'd asked when she confronted him, his face a masterclass in practiced contrition. It was nothing, Mads. A stupid flirtation. It didn't mean anything. She'd tilted her head, studying him like a scientist might observe a particularly disappointing specimen. Of course, she'd said, her voice honey-sweet. We should have dinner. Talk about things properly. Absolutely, he'd agreed too quickly, relief washing over his features. I'll make it up to you. I swear. Perfect, she'd thought. 2 nights later, he sat across from her in her pristine, candlelit apartment, sipping a drink that tasted faintly of lavender and regret. He couldn't place the flavor exactly, something herbal, exotic. But it warmed his throat and loosened the knot of anxiety he'd been carrying. This is nice, he said, gesturing to the elaborate spread between them. Maddie had outdone herself. Roast chicken with herbs, vegetables arranged with artistic precision, wine that cost more than his weekly grocery budget. The food is amazing. Thank you, she replied, her fingers tracing the rim of her wineglass. My mother always said the most important conversations should happen over good food. It softens the blow. Ethan shifted in his seat. Blow. Figure of speech, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. So, dinner date to talk about things, he asked, trying to sound casual. Very grown-up of us. She said, swirling her wine. His confidence returned with each sip of his strange, soothing drink. The candlelight flattered her, highlighting the elegant line of her neck, the fullness of her lips. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. Maybe she realized what they had was too good to throw away over a few meaningless texts. He leaned back, cocky as ever. Look, Mads. I know I screwed up. But you have to admit, you and I were electric. This little hiccup, he gestured vaguely, as if infidelity were a misplaced sock. We can bounce back. Electric, she repeated, her voice flat. Is that what you told her? The girl in your texts. Did you tell her she was electric too? He winced. That's not fair. No. What part specifically? Look, it was just texting. Nothing happened physically. Would it have, if I hadn't caught you? Ethan's silence was answer enough. She set her glass down gently. Ethan, you weren't a hiccup. You were a lesson. He blinked. Wait, what? And now, she continued, standing up and walking to a shelf lined with books, you're going to learn what it feels like to be objectified, betrayed, dismissed, pushed aside because someone hotter walked by. What are you talking about? His cocky demeanor slipped, revealing genuine confusion underneath. She turned, a leather-bound journal in her hands. It was old. Too old. The kind of old that smelled like dust and secrets. The binding was cracked leather, the pages yellowed with age. Strange symbols were etched into the cover. Maddie, what is that? His voice had risen slightly. I'm talking, she said, about empathy. Divine, humiliating empathy. Ethan laughed. But it was shaky now. Okay, what? Are you going to send me to therapy or something? No, darling, she said sweetly, opening the book. I'm going to make you a woman. He blinked. Come again. Blonde, beautiful, just your type. Until I decide you've learned what pain feels like. You're joking. I'm really not. She flipped through pages covered in handwritten script and diagrams that made his eyes hurt to look at directly. Is this about your weird family stories again? The witchy stuff. He tried to laugh it off. Come on, Mads. My weird family stories have more truth than you've ever told me, she said calmly. Did you know my mother warned me about you? She said you had the aura of a man who doesn't understand consequences. Auras now. Jesus, Maddie. She was right. He stood up. Maddie. You can't just, magically turn me into. I can. I am. And I will? He stared at her. You're serious? She arched an eyebrow. Deadly. Okay, he laughed again, weaker this time. Look. I cheated. I get it. I was a dick. But turning me into some ditzy bombshell. Isn't that a little ironic? Ironic, she repeated. Oh no, Ethan. It's poetic. And sexist, he countered. Didn't think you'd be the type to think all blonde women are. Don't. She cut him off, her voice suddenly sharp. Don't you dare try to take the moral high ground here. I'm not turning you into what I think all blonde women are. I'm turning you into what you think they are. There's a difference. That shut him up. He rubbed his temples. And how long is this supposed to last? Until I believe you understand what it feels like to be on the other side of betrayal. Could be days, weeks, months, years. Depends on how fast you learn. She was flipping through pages now, chanting something under her breath. He felt the air shift, like static before a storm. This is insane, he said, looking around for his keys. Maybe if he could just get out of here before she finished whatever bizarre ritual she was performing. You realize that, right? This is completely insane. What's insane, she replied without looking up, is thinking you could humiliate me and suffer no consequences. You can't just magic someone into. My grandmother did, she interrupted. To my grandfather. For 3 months. He never looked at another woman again. Ethan felt the first stirrings of genuine fear. The air in the apartment had changed somehow, growing heavier, charged with something he couldn't name. The candles flickered, despite the absence of any breeze. You're insane, he mumbled, backing toward the door. No, Ethan, she said, her voice low and calm. I'm just done playing nice. He opened his mouth to argue, but then the room started to spin. The candlelight flickered more violently now. The air smelled like rose petals and ozone, and underneath it all, something burning. What the hell? He gasped. His limbs felt suddenly heavy. His skin too tight. He staggered backward, grabbing the edge of the table. Wait, Maddie, I accept it. Okay. I deserve it. I do. I accept the punishment. Just tell me it's not permanent. She smiled again, but it wasn't the smile he knew. There was something ancient in it, something that didn't belong entirely to her. That's up to you, sweetheart. And then, the transformation began. His bones ached first, a deep throb that started in his marrow and spread outward. His skin tingled, then burned, like 1,000 tiny needles pressing in. He gasped, doubling over, clutching at his chest, as if he could physically hold himself together. Maddie, he choked out, please. But she only watched, her expression impassive, as the man she'd once loved began to disappear before her eyes. Ethan didn't fall. He unraveled. The world didn't spin so much as it melted, like candle wax under a flame, and he was the wick, burning, twisting, reshaping in the heat of Madeline's spell. What the... His voice cracked and splintered. The air around him seemed to thicken, becoming almost gelatinous, pressing against his skin from all sides. He dropped to his knees with a grunt, one hand braced against the hardwood floor. His pulse thudded in his ears. He could feel it. Starting in his chest, like a second heartbeat, a strange rhythm that didn't belong to him, yet was growing stronger by the second. It felt like butterfly wings fluttering beneath his skin. Delicate at first, then more insistent, until they became a storm. Maddie, he gasped, looking up. What's happening? His tongue felt thick in his mouth, clumsy as if it no longer fit properly. She stood over him like a queen watching a jester, realized the joke was on him. The candlelight carved dramatic shadows on her face, making her look almost otherworldly. Her eyes gleamed with something ancient and merciless. "You're becoming," she said coolly, "something new." "I don't want to be something new," he protested, his words slurring slightly as his mouth began to change shape. "I want to be," but he couldn't finish the sentence. A spasm racked his body, electric and invasive. Madeline circled him, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "Perhaps you should have thought of that before you decided my feelings were disposable." Ethan's shirt suddenly clung to him, too tightly. His chest felt like it was swelling, as if someone had wrapped invisible hands around it, and was slowly, deliberately sculpting something new beneath his skin. The sensation was neither painful nor pleasant. Rather, it was deeply alien, as if parts of his body were being erased and rewritten. "It itches," he gasped, clawing at his chest. "It burns. That's just the beginning," Madeline said. "Your hormones are rewriting themselves. Every cell in your body is being reprogrammed." He looked down just as the fabric strained and pulled, his pecs rising, softening, reshaping. With a gasp, he watched his chest bloom like twin flowers, pressing outward into perfect pert B-cup breasts. His nipples tingled, becoming more sensitive by the second, brushing against the inside of his shirt like silk over glass. Each subtle movement sent shivers through his newly formed nerve endings. "What the holy hell?" he choked, grabbing them instinctively. They felt real, warm, soft, heavy in a way that was utterly foreign. His hands, still large and masculine, looked obscene against the delicate swells. These are real." "Of course they're real," Madeline said. "Did you think I'd give you implants? This isn't surgery, Ethan. This is transformation. Everything you're becoming is authentically you." Then, the pressure moved lower. His torso began to condense, bones creaking softly like old wood being recarved. His broad shoulders narrowed, his waist pulling inward as if cinched by an invisible corset. He gasped, watching the muscled definition of his abs melt away into a delicate feminine hourglass. His spine arched subtly, curving with a grace he'd never possessed before. The sensation was like being squeezed and stretched simultaneously. "I can feel everything moving inside," he whimpered, wrapping arms around his shrinking midsection. "My organs are shifting." "Making room," Madeline explained clinically. "Your internal structure is being optimized for your new form." His jeans, already snug, tightened painfully as his hips exploded outward, stretching the denim to its limit. The seams creaked in protest. His pelvis rotated, reshaped, widening into a sensual curve that forced his stance wider. His thighs thickened with plush feminine softness, and his ass, once flat and forgettable, blossomed into a perfect heart-shaped dream that would have made his old self whistle. The fabric of his pants stretched dangerously, threatening to tear at any moment. "Jesus Christ," he breathed, running newly slender hands over the unfamiliar curves. This is insane. I look like the girls you chase. The ones you think are disposable." Madeline finished for him, her voice glacial. He tried to stand but stumbled. His legs were shorter. Much shorter. His balance was all wrong. His center of gravity had shifted drastically, throwing off every movement he attempted. He looked down in disbelief. His legs, once long and lanky, were now smooth, toned, undeniably girly. Every hair had vanished, leaving nothing but silken skin that gleamed in the candlelight. His feet shrank, toes tingling as his shoes slipped off completely, suddenly comically large beside his new dainty feet. 5'4", Madeline mused, watching with arms crossed. Cute. Pocket-sized karma. 5, 4, he squeaked. I've lost 10 inches of height. Don't worry, she said with a smirk. You'll find you've gained inches elsewhere. Her eyes flicked meaningfully to his new chest. Ethan's hands flew to his face as his jaw began to tingle. The bones beneath his skin softened like warm clay, molding themselves into a new arrangement. His once angular features softened rapidly. A smaller, cuter nose, cheekbones that lifted like a model's, a jawline that melted into a delicate taper. His eyebrows arched higher, his lips plumping into a full glossy pout. He blinked, his lashes were longer, thicker, brushing against his cheeks when he closed his eyes. His ears shrank slightly, becoming more delicate, and he felt a strange tugging sensation as tiny holes appeared in the lobes, ready for earrings. My face, he whispered, fingers tracing unfamiliar contours. I don't. Let me guess, Madeline said. You don't recognize yourself. She laughed softly. Welcome to the club. I didn't recognize you either when I saw those texts. Then came the hair. It started as a tickle on the back of his neck, then a rush, a waterfall of platinum blonde, cascading down past his shoulders, then farther and farther, until it reached halfway down his new, curvy back in soft, silken waves. The weight of it was immediate and strange, tugging at his scalp with an unfamiliar heaviness. He could smell it, vanilla and coconut, an intoxicating scent that wafted around him with every small movement. Oh, God, he gasped, grabbing handfuls of the silky strands. It's so long. So much. You always did have a thing for blondes, Madeline observed, reaching out to touch a strand. Particularly ones with great hair. Wasn't that how you described Amanda in those texts? He winced at the name. He moaned, as the final wave of changes rippled downward. Between his legs, something shifted with a strange pull that sent a jolt through his entire body. The sensation was indescribable, a hollowing out, a reshaping, an electric tingling that spread through his pelvis like wildfire. He doubled over, gasping, as the last remnants of his manhood were replaced with something new, something foreign and terrifyingly intimate. The sensation was like being turned inside out and kissed by lightning. His hands instinctively moved to cover himself, feeling nothing where there had once been something. Instead, there was a new sensitivity, a new vulnerability that made him press his thighs together in shock. Oh my God, he whispered, his eyes wide with disbelief. It's really gone. Not gone, Madeline corrected, her voice almost academic. Transformed. Just like the rest of you. The final changes came in a rush, his skin softening all over, pores shrinking, a subtle flush appearing in his cheeks like permanent blush. His nails lengthened slightly, taking on a natural almond shape. He could feel his vocal cords tightening, shifting position in his throat. When it was over, he lay there, panting, trembling, his heart pounding like a drum solo. His clothes hung awkwardly on his new form, his shirt now comically large around the shoulders, but stretched tight across his chest. His pants threatening to slide off his smaller waist while straining against his wider hips. Silence. Except for Madeline's heels, clicking slowly as she circled him, like a predator admiring her handiwork. Well, she said, crouching beside him. Look at you. He looked up, his voice caught in his throat. He tried to speak, but what came out was a soft, breathy, feminine gasp that startled him so much he clapped a hand over his mouth. Oh my God, he whispered, hearing his new voice for the first time. It was light, husky, sultry in a way that sent chills down his own spine. The words felt different in his mouth, shaped by different lips, produced by different vocal cords. I sound like a phone sex operator. Madeline smirked. You look like one too. She reached into her purse and pulled out a compact mirror, an elegant silver thing with her initials engraved on it. Ethan took it with trembling fingers. He stared. A stranger stared back. A gorgeous, wide-eyed, blonde bombshell with a face meant for magazine covers and a body sculpted for sin. Her lips were parted in shock, her expression a perfect mix of horror and disbelief. Crystal blue eyes, the kind that had always been his weakness in women, stared back at him, framed by impossibly thick lashes. His eyes, but not his eyes. A perfect stranger with his consciousness trapped inside. He dropped the mirror. It clattered against the floor, the sound jarring in the quiet room. "Change me back," he demanded, his new voice rising in panic. "You've made your point. I get it." "Do you?" Madeline asked, raising an eyebrow. "I don't think you do. Not yet. This is cruel," he said, gesturing down at his transformed body. "You can't just turn someone into a woman. It's not natural. Neither is promising someone loyalty and then betraying them," she replied calmly. "And yet you did that quite naturally." "How long?" he asked, his voice breaking. "How long am I going to be this?" Madeline leaned in, her voice low and velvet smooth, her breath warm against his ear. "Welcome to womanhood, sweetheart. Let's see how long it takes before you cry in a bathroom stall and wonder why men are absolute garbage." He opened his mouth to protest, but all he could manage was a whimper. His new body felt heavy and light at the same time. Familiar, and yet completely foreign. Every sensation was amplified, the brush of fabric against his skin, the weight of his hair on his shoulders, the strange emptiness between his legs. You can't leave me like this," he said, his voice catching. "I can't even stand up properly." "You'll learn," Madeline said, straightening up. "Women always do." She looked down at him, at the beautiful creature he'd become, and her expression softened slightly, not with forgiveness, but with something like resignation. "I'll give you one piece of advice, though," she said, "since I'm not completely heartless." He looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. Madeline's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "When you wear heels, walk heel to toe, and never, ever run in stilettos unless you're being chased by a murderer."